Sorry about that. We had our streaming software cut out, which interrupted us in the middle of the last one. But if you're just joining us, we're doing Christmas Pitch Fest, and we're listening to a pitch called Ladder, a Thriller by Taylor. Okay, so the main point here was that we spent almost the entire time on the first act when really we're listening for, and if we sort of like condense this down to bullet points, what are the most important things, right? There is a woman who goes through a divorce. She used to be wealthy, but now she like has lost a bunch of status. She she spends every last penny on her last ditch attempt to throw an event, right? And then it turns out that someone dies in it. Okay, and that's really all we need to know for the first act. I don't think we really need to go into like the details of the party planning company or things like that. I think the only thing that we really need to know from the beginning is woman has lost everything or stands to lose everything. She envies that status that she used to have, or the people that have the status she used to have, and she's at the end of her rope, so she absolutely has to make this event work. Should just be super clear. And then once we know that, you want to get us into like the fun and games a little bit. So I think that there's probably going to be some good escalation in a story like this. You don't have to get us all the way through it, but if you can like at least take us up to the midpoint. Can I ask, what is the midpoint?
Yeah, so the event planning company does become a pretty big aspect of this story.
Oh, it does.
It becomes this intern's story as much as the person we're starting out with. Mm-hmm. So as this goes on, so I would definitely say this is more dark comedy thriller-ish. They pull a Weekend at Bernie's where they're trying to get the body across the venue hall, and then they can't bring it outside because it's way too heavy for them. So they go into a kitchen, they start chopping the body into pieces.
Whoa.
They get it to a car, and then they drive it into like a canyon to ditch it in a lake. A drunk driver hits them, and then in the morning they're planning to just finally dispose of this body, and the ex-husband comes in and says he wants to get back with this woman, so her social status and her money situation is pretty much taken care of, and that's where we kind of take over with this intern who is really pissed because it is now she's kind of stuck taking care of the body while this woman's issues are basically taken care of at this point.
Okay. So we change protagonists at the middle?
Not exactly. She becomes more of an antagonist.
Oh.
It becomes much more clear at that point. She's desperate to be on this reality show based around this event planning company. Mm-hmm. Sorry, let me just pull up my...
No, you're good. So the second half of the movie is that the intern becomes kind of the main villain?
Yeah, and it becomes much more apparent because she is now. I would say we start moving into more stalker genre-ish, where she starts stalking this woman who is now getting back with her ex-husband to help her get this part on this reality series, and threatening to expose that she still has this dead body.
Right. Okay. That's all very cool, and that almost, to me, makes it sound like there's... If you just leave your pitch where you did, it's going to sound like the whole movie is centered around the party. Whereas you're saying the second half is actually completely different and distinct and sort of has a different goal than the first half had, because the first half was all about hiding this body, and the way you've explained... Like, there are thrillers that would just be all at the party, and they're just trying to accomplish that goal the whole time. But the fact that the goal changes so much, to me, says that you need to communicate that latter half of or like tell us where it's going. This is what I mean when I say you want to suggest where the rest of it is going. Then especially the fact that it now turns from a kind of contained like Weekend at Bernie's into more of a stalker thriller. That's really significant story information that I never would have figured that out from just hearing only the first half there. So I would try to maybe just give that full scope and make sure that we get... Because that's all really cool stuff, and now I'm more interested in the movie now that I know that. The other thing is that it's maybe actually manifesting as a story issue to me, but the fact that they go so far, and it doesn't feel like her level of like the investment it takes to not, like, I was willing to go with you for hiding the body, but for dismembering the body, like the amount of pure willpower and like you would have a hard time asking someone to do that if their life was on the line. Like, think of like a Saw movie, right? Sometimes in the Saw trap, they'll be like, oh, by the way, there's a key in that corpse. You have to cut that corpse open. That's really difficult. And especially the fact that she's recruited someone to help her with this, I think most people would draw the line at dismembering a human corpse. So unless there's like, it may be that you haven't built the stakes high enough, and you haven't built either that, or the main character is just absolutely psychopathically crazy, right? Or maybe the world, like you saying, I think, or maybe like you're realizing, is a little more comedic than you first originally described it as. But I think it has to be one of those three things. I think either, to re-summarize those three things. One, the world just needs to feel like it's more comedic for that to make sense, that the stakes would jump to that level. Two, you need to increase our investment in this one party so as to say, like, there's going to be, like, maybe even disastrous consequences if this goes poorly, or if this doesn't go amazingly. Your main character will be in a horrible spot, like, so bad that we can understand why a person would go to this extreme length to cover up what is not even her fault. It may actually, have you considered just making it her fault that the guy dies?
Yeah, I've played around with that idea, with it being like an accidental drug overdose, or that she's much more involved in his death versus just kind of finding him.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that I probably need to start pushing this into less, I mean, just more humorous, and possibly even start going into a satirical direction with it, because it does play on a lot of just weird rich people shit and things like that. So I do think that's a great suggestion and something I really need to be looking at.
Great, awesome. So yeah, hope that helps. And there's multiple fixes. There's multiple things you could do that might potentially address that. But just hearing it, and by the time we got to the end, I was waiting for something that explains why this is so important to this character. That something that, like, would justify going to the level of not being a murderer at all to chopping up a human body within one party is a really big transformation for a person, and, like, series of moral crucibles that you have to very quickly go through. So most people would only do that if it was super important, like life or death important, like she was going to go to jail if they find this body. Like, it's something that would really, like, the death would really point to her, or it would ruin her even further, or it would, like, expose her for something, or we'd have to think that it would be an absolute travesty if this guy was discovered. That's either that, or the world that we're in is just one that allows for, like, more dark comedy kind of stakes, where the main character is a little just a bit more crazy psychopathic rich person who wants to be, you know, and that at the top of the 1% or whatever, and she's willing to do anything it takes. If that's the world we're in, it's more like sort of Heather's kind of world. I could maybe see it, but that would just require an adjustment in how you're presenting the tone. So I would probably recommend that you start explaining it as a thriller/dark comedy.
Got it.
Any questions on this one?
For me personally, no. I appreciate all the feedback. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any comments or questions from the rest of the group? Too Lazy suggests maybe she didn't do it, but the circumstances make her look guilty. Yeah, that could be as well, where whatever compromising position they find the guy in, I don't know, he's mentioned an overdose. Maybe he overdoses on the same drugs that she has, or something like that, that just makes it look really clear that she could have done it, or she's to blame for some reason for it. Or maybe there's some safety feature or function that malfunctions at the party, like, instead of cleaning up the broken floorboard, she just puts tape over it or whatever, and then he steps through it, you know. So it's like, it is her fault because she didn't set up the party properly, or cut corners where she shouldn't have, or something like that. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Thank you so much, Taylor. Nice job with this. Shall we move on to the next one? We have Cohen versus Claus from Morgana. And this is a holiday-themed one. Are you here, Morgana?
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you read this logline out for us, please?
Yeah. All right. Cohen v. Claus. Santa goes on trial. No, Santa goes to trial after a Jewish child files a discrimination lawsuit against him.
Well, you made me laugh with the logline, which is what you want for a comedy. That premise is inherently funny.
Yeah.
So just based on the logline, let me read it one more time. Santa goes to trial. We'd say goes on trial.
Yeah.
After a Jewish child files a discrimination lawsuit against him. And if he loses, does Santa have money? Like, he's just trying to... Or maybe it's his sort of reputation at stake more than anything else?
Actually, honestly, I came up with this idea, like, 30 minutes ago. What I came up with is that he has to watch all 180 episodes of Seinfeld, and he has to put Mel Gibson and Kanye West on the naughty list permanently. That's what he has to do to make up for his not giving Jewish children gifts.
That's his... Oh, you mean that's his punishment?
Yes.
If he's found guilty. Okay. Or you mean that's what that the stakes are that he potentially will have to watch every episode of Seinfeld. I mean, that's a good show. So I guess if there's...
No, because... It's more of an SNL sketch. It's not really a movie.
I see.
Because Seinfeld is like the most Jewish show I could think of, so that's like the joke. Well, that's what I was going with.
I understand, but just in terms of stakes for a movie, it's like if he fails, he gets to watch a show. I think that you'd want to, if you can in the logline, try to just maybe highlight the importance of the stakes. Even if in a comedy world, it can be kind of whatever you want. It seems to me that Santa doesn't want to have his reputation tarnished as a racist, right? Or like as a discriminator. That would be damaging. That would make him very depressed, perhaps. Or that might ruin next year's Christmas. Santa might be so depressed that he won't be able to do Christmas for a long time. Or maybe he thinks he has to rethink the whole idea of Christmas. Or put it on hiatus or something like that. Like, if we can just maybe suggest a little bit in the logline itself, like, or else Christmas will be ruined forever. Something like that just suggests why does he have to, like, what happens if the character fails? Because Santa Claus doesn't really use money as far as we know, unless he's paying the elves under the table or something. Then a lawsuit normally would not really threaten someone financially who doesn't rely on money, right? So we'd have to highlight the stakes as something else.
Yeah, honestly, this is not a movie. This is a sketch. If I'm, like, I don't know. I just came up with it. It's pretty stupid.
It's funny. I like it a lot. I would definitely watch this if this was a movie. I mean, do you want to do a pitch for it, or do you not have a full feature idea for it?
Not a full feature. I just came up with ideas bullet points, but it's not a feature, so I can't really do much. Okay. Like, his lawyer is an elf.
I love it.
And yeah, he brings in Rudolph as a key witness. But he find then the kid's lawyer, his dad, he brings in the head of the elf union, and they find out that there's no dental plan, which is a problem because all you can eat at the North Pole is candy and cookies. Mm-hmm. So Santa's like kind of a scumbag, and then okay. You can move on. That's all I have.
That's okay. I mean, it is funny. You're right. It does sound a bit more like a sketch than a full feature. You could make a full feature of it, though. I mean, you just need to sort of increase the character's investment a little bit, and maybe build out a stronger sense of like what the story is going to be up to the midpoint. Maybe some kind of big reversal at the midpoint would be nice here. And I think that being accused of being discriminatory, it's kind of abstract. It's not really like a courtroom movie typically will be based on really concrete cases, like did this person commit murder or not, or something like that. A courtroom story that centers around something that's sort of nebulous and difficult to prove, like how are we going to... I guess there are discrimination lawsuits, and there are things like this. There's not a lot of movies based on them for the most part, just because we have to imagine that and I know this is not a full movie idea. I'm just riffing on this now, but just in terms of like courtroom drama writing, This case just feels a little like, how do we prove that Santa's not discriminatory? Do we have to bring other people up and then have them testify?
I came up with that idea.
Well, sure, but
I have an idea for that.
Go ahead.
He brings in Rudolph, who's like, oh, I had like I had a red nose. He did not discriminate against me.
I see. Okay, so Rudolph has a disability, and so he comes in to say, like, I get it. So they're trying to build the case that Santa doesn't discriminate against anyone, that he serves people all over the world, sort of thing, and that no matter what their personal case. Okay, I see it a little more. So maybe in the full pitch for it, you could, that would have clarified a little bit more what the movie's actually going to be, like what the conflict is actually going to look like. And I do like that idea. I do think it could work as a feature if it were fleshed out more, but I know you, at the moment, don't have it at that stage, so that's okay. Thanks for sharing, though. I do like the idea.
Yeah, thanks.
So, you have some comments in the chat, too. Somebody says, absolutely insane, and I love it. We have a question also, who's the intended audience? That might be a good question. And some other ideas from Too Lazy. Feel free to check the chat if you want to see some more comments on that. Okay, thanks for this. Let's move on to our next one. We have Honey Pots from Too Lazy.
Yes. Hello. Can everyone hear me good?
I hear you fine. Can you read this off for us?
Okay, great. I did make a few changes to the logline pretty quickly.
Oh, I can update it on here. Did you edit the post in the chat?
Quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the one in chat. Just a couple edits. It's not.
Okay. All right, here we are.
All right, here we go. A well-off but socially isolated and unfulfilled FBI cybersecurity agent assists in setting up honeypots to catch people attempting to buy illegal services. But after learning the heartbreaking reason one of the people caught was looking for a hitman, he decides to take matters into his own hands and kill the person that the hit was placed on, risking his livelihood in order to do what he feels is truly justice.
All right, thanks for this. Let me read this again to make sure I understand just the logline itself. A well-off but socially isolated and unfulfilled FBI security agent assists in setting up honeypots to catch people attempting to buy illegal services. But after learning the heartbreaking reason one of the people caught was looking for a hitman, he decides to take matters into his own hands and kill the person the hit was placed on, risking his livelihood in order to do what he feels is truly justice. So this is just too long for a packed into it. I would think more in terms of start with the inciting incident right away. I think that we maybe have a little too much in this first clause here. Something that's just like, when an isolated and unfulfilled FBI agent discovers blank, 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 and go from there. I don't think we need all this at the beginning. After learning the heartbreaking reason one of the people caught...
Yeah, originally it was shorter, but I actually made it longer for this, because I thought you had to make it longer.
The pitch you can go into more detail on. You will have up to 3 minutes in the pitch, but for the logline itself, try to just get one solid sentence. One short solid sentence, I should say. So let me just make sure I understand. This guy attempts to catch people who are buying illegal services. He learns that one of the people that he arrested was trying to kill somebody for a good reason, so he decides to kill that person himself.
Yeah, basically, he feels like super unfulfilled. He feels like because he put on all this work to become a cybersecurity agent, but he still feels like he's not really, I guess, helping people. Mm-hmm. And he learns one of the situations why someone was trying to buy one of the services, one of them being a hitman. And he figures out what happened, why he was doing this in the first place. And because he's so isolated, so just kind of disassociated from those around him, he becomes kind of obsessed with it. After realizing it makes him just so angry and upset that he's like, all right, I could probably find out information about this dude fairly easily, and yeah, I could probably, I don't know, get rid of him because like
Sure.
he's
Okay.
frustrated with the way the system works around him. He feels like it's not doing anything
Hmm.
to
So
put people in charge.
let me ask this. What exactly is the reason that I feel like you might need to just clarify what the person did in the logline if we're gonna kind of understand what happens here. So does he discover this person is like a child molester or something, or like what is it exactly that? Why is he deciding to kill this person?
Like I was kind of afraid to drop that word, but yeah, basically the dude who was hiring a hitman, it was because he found out someone did something terrible to his underage daughter, and however the dude gets away with it, he basically gets off scot-free. So
I think
the guy
you're
was trying to hire a hitman to
I see. Go ahead.
yeah, he was doing that to basically he didn't want to kill himself, so he goes and looks for a hitman to try and get the guy killed because he doesn't want to have his life ruined, but obviously it kind of backfires. He ends up having his life ruined anyways. So yeah, basically the reason the dude was hiring a hitman in the first place was because, you know, he was pissed off that justice was not done for his daughter.
Okay, I'll let you go into the full pitch in just a second, so you can explain all that stuff. But let me just throw this at you. So I think that your inciting incident is more like when an unfulfilled FBI agent accidentally lets a child molester slip through the cracks, right? Isn't that kind of how you characterize what happens here?
No.
No?
The reason the child molester got away with it in the first place, it was kind of unrelated, I guess.
Oh, so he just sort of.
He
But
learns
doesn't he
the
feel responsible
horrifying
for this person still being out there?
Maybe like in general, yeah, he feels like stories like this are why he feels like he's so unaccomplished. He feels like he's not going anywhere.
Okay, but so if we start and you don't have to phrase it exactly like this, but if we start the logline a little later without all this setup, and we just go right to the inciting incident like that and just spell out for us what actually is going on here like this. So he decides to hunt the guy down on his own. So this is sort of like I Saw the Devil or a revenge thriller like that. So yeah, try to just be a little more concise with the logline. Get us right to that inciting incident as almost the first thing that you say, and I think we'll have a stronger sense of what the movie is. And maybe just give us a little more specifics and information too. Though, if like the learning the heartbreaking reason one of the people caught was looking for a hitman is just so many words to add to this when we could just say what they actually did and get to the point faster. Okay. So that's my feedback on the logline. Are you ready to go through the pitch?
Sure. I mean, it's pretty. Mainly the idea was a log line, and in the first place, I wanted to try to flesh the idea out more.
That's okay. Do you want to give it a shot?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Okay.
So, yeah, our main character is again a socially isolated FBI cybersecurity agent. He's gone through years of school to get to this point. He has a well-paying job. He has money, but he still just feels extremely unfulfilled in his life. Even though he is feeling okay. I'm totally drawn off now.
That's okay. Do you want to just take a second and start over?
Sure.
Sure. Just take a second. Yeah, whatever you want. No pressure. It's just for practice and for fun. And if you genuinely don't know what is going to happen later on in the movie, you can kind of stop it a little earlier.
I know what happens. I know everything that's supposed to happen. I'm having a hard time putting it into words, I guess.
Sure, that's okay. We can also come back to you if you want a little more time to work on it before we hear it. How would you like to do it?
I'm looking at chat. Well, basically, the father was the one who was hiring a hitman in the first place. But...
Right.
So yeah, he helps. So yeah, he's an unfulfilled, isolated man who I'm choking right now so hard. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Can we move on later, please?
Sure, I can just come back to you later when you're ready.
Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. You're totally fine. Okay, I'll just say I like the basic idea, and I would be interested in, to hearing more. This is the kind of movie I do enjoy. Okay, so we'll come back to Too Lazy in a little bit. Let's move on to our next one, which is going to be Jason. Is he still here? Oh no, I can't
hear you.
Can't hear you, Jason. Mic's not on.
You guys hear me now?
I hear you now.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Great.
Cool. So
Okay.
this is the script you're currently working on, right?
Yeah, both the name and the log line are very much work in progress.
That's fine. All right. You want to start us off with the logline?
Sure. Okay. After a failed smuggling attempt, a disgraced naval captain must rob a ship to recover his lost gains. In the middle of the heist, a hurricane blows over the target, forcing him to choose abandon the gold or sink with it.
Let's read that again and let's look at everything. Okay, Down with the Ship. Oh, we haven't decided on a title, it looks like. Yeah, but we'll just call it Down with the Ship. Heist/disaster. Love it. Comps Pirates of the Caribbean meets Titanic. After a failed smuggling attempt, a disgraced naval captain must rob a ship to recover his lost gains. In the middle of the heist, a hurricane blows over their target, forcing them to choose abandon the gold or sink with it. Okay, I like how you phrased that at the ending here, though if we can get this to, I think you can definitely get this to one sentence. Second of all, in the first clause here, a failed smuggling attempt. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Do you mean he lost all his treasure, or he lost his haul of goods?
Yeah.
He did.
His haul of goods is destroyed in the process.
Okay, I would just say that instead. After losing a haul of gold or whatever it is, like after losing the most important smuggling run of his career, something like, or something that just clarifies what you mean exactly. Because a failed smuggling attempt could be almost anything, couldn't it? A failed smuggling attempt could be, I wanted to get past the blockade, but I couldn't get past it, or it could be my ship sank, or it could be all my friends got arrested. So maybe just tell us what exactly happened. So is it his own stuff that he's getting back, or is he just trying to fix his deficit and get repaid?
He was smuggling for the local crime boss and lost the haul.
But he's not recovering the same treasure that he lost, is he?
No, he's paying back the crime boss the money that was lost.
Okay, so the phrasing, he's trying to recover his lost gains, sort of to me implies that he's trying to recover the same treasure that was stolen from him, which is not actually true. And if you clarify that first sentence so that we understand what actually happened, I think we will not make that same mistake. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So after just losing a bunch of money in a smuggling run, he sets his sights on the, what is it? Is it a passenger ship? What kind of
SS Central America?
And what kind of ship is it?
It's the world's largest sidewheel steamer.
The world's largest steamer ship?
Yeah.
That's so cool. You should say that in the logline. Don't hide the coolest thing from us. That's awesome. I definitely want to know that. It's not just robbing a ship. It tells us so much more what the set pieces are going to be now that we know that. So after losing a bunch of money, a disgraced naval captain decides to rob the world's largest steamer ship in the middle of a hurricane, or I guess you would say, which is then complicated by a hurricane that blows in. The other thing about this logline is we don't usually want to phrase this in terms of characters choosing stuff, because having to choose is like an internal process, and it's something that we can't really picture what they're doing. But what they're doing is what we're watching him do is not watching him choose stuff. We're watching him. He now has to complete the heist with a hurricane going on. Isn't that really what the main character has to do? And that's so much more visually interesting than imagining a character choosing stuff. That's the subtext. That's what you're implying, and that's where the character kind of ends up going. He goes to the place, or it develops to the point where he, towards the very end, needs to kind of end up abandoning the gold or sinking with it. But the movie, what we're watching, is a heist in the middle of a hurricane. It's kind of a hurricane heist, you could say.
It is a hurricane heist.
It is indeed. This is the sequel to the Hurricane, or a prequel to the Hurricane heist.
It's definitely the prequel.
Right. Okay. So that's just my notes for the log line. So 3 main things. 1, clarify what happens in the inciting incident. 2, make it all 1 sentence. And 3, frame what they're doing in terms of the most exciting and interesting detail, or the most exciting and interesting way you could phrase it. So now they need to complete the heist in the middle of a huge, deadly storm. The last thing is that your comps are off. There's no fantasy in this movie, so Pirates of the Caribbean is probably the wrong choice.
Okay.
Because when you say, especially if that's your first comp, people are going to be like, okay, sea monsters, witches, magic, ghost pirates, all that kind of stuff. And this is actually based on a true story. Titanic is a pretty good comp for this. And I'm not sure what the other one you want is yet. Probably not the Hurricane heist, but if you can pick something else, maybe historical or action adventure naval kind of based like that. Not quite Master and Commander, maybe not, but we're definitely in that kind of era. Or what year is this set in? I forget.
1857, so 2 years before the Civil War.
Oh, okay. Maybe Master and Commander is not the worst comp then in that case, because that is a historical movie set in the 1800s and revolving around naval stuff. Just something to think about. But you probably want to pick one of your movies to be heist related, which I think is why you picked Pirates of the Caribbean, because it involves stealing gold. Okay. I get that, but just the fantasy is going to throw people off. See if you can find something more based in history. Okay, you ready to go into the pitch? And any questions based on the logline stuff? I know that was a bunch of points.
No. I mean, the logline is something that needs to be tightened up, and I agree entirely. It's been and also the logline has changed a lot as we've been writing it. So
sure.
It was originally much more of a there were a lot more members of the heist crew originally, and now it's a much smaller crew.
Gotcha. Okay, so whenever you're ready, I'll start your clock, and you can take us through the movie.
All right, I can start.
Go for it.
So in 1857, the SS Central America sunk off the coast of South Carolina with over $2 billion of gold on board. Now that's the true story, but this is the story of a heist that should have happened. The story starts with our William Hickory Fitzhugh, a naval captain, wrapped up with his first mate in bed, and also lover. They separate when there's a knock at the door. There is the local administrators need to see what's going on, and the first mate / lover, his name is Toby, is sent on his way to take care of things. On board of their own ship, Toby is arrested for smuggling of many goods, all the fun things, drugs, rock and roll, people, all that stuff. And when he turns to find his captain / lover, he only sees the captain diving out the window to save himself, for that is the most important thing to him. We then follow 10 years later to Hickory, who is now up to the same thing as he has always been, smuggling goods. But he is smuggling goods with his new compatriot, Eli, a woman dressed as a man, who is now piloting his ship. And with the Spanish Armada quick behind them, now they do not escape. Their ship is destroyed, and all that is left is them with one small piece of one small barrel of rum, which is then stolen by the survivors of their small vessel. They retreat back to their the crime lord that they were serving, whose goods they were transporting, who tells them that they need to replace the money that was lost, either the $100,000 that either they can pay it with their genitalia, and or they can pay him the money. Now, in a last chance bet, Hickory states that no, there's the ship, the SS Central America, that we can rob. I can steal it. We can run it aground into friendly waters where you and your team can steal the gold aboard. It is the wealth of nations, the score of a lifetime, and we will make this happen. They are given, but all they need is to get on board, get some uniforms, and be added to the registrar. The crime lord helps them with this by giving them one of his own colleagues, a man named Jonathan, who's an escaped slave / sleight of hand master. he gets them the uniforms and gets them on board. The three of them then proceed to stake out the ship while trying to avoid the head of security, who is the first mate that we met in the first scene. Toby is now the head of security of the ship, for he would never want a ship to be taken advantage of in the way he was previously. After a day at sea, he sees his old lover and immediately has him arrested. At the same time, they start coming upon a giant storm that quickly overwhelms the ship, for the ship was supposedly unsinkable. However, the strength of the storm was completely underappreciated. Now, the ship continues to go forward into the night, and the nightly. Oh, that's it. Okay, sorry, we're at 3 minutes.
Oh, you're at almost 4, actually. That was a while ago. That's okay. So did we hit the midpoint, or are we still approaching that?
I had like one more thing, but I gave too much at the beginning.
Okay, yeah. So, there's a lot of really, really good stuff here. I think that you probably are aware of what the main issue is that you spent the first minute on just the opening scene, and we just can usually get going a little quicker, and we like the second act should be like within 4 or 5 sentences of when we start. And we need to spend the majority of the pitch on the really fun stuff and not setting up all the fun stuff. And like, for instance, I know why you were doing these things, like the reveal of Toby being on the ship that we get to eventually. It does make more sense if you know about that opening scene. But I don't think for just a pitch we needed to know about like all the details of the opening scene. So like if we start off with, once upon a time, there was this, old wash-up naval captain who loses an entire ship full of gold. Now, deep in debt, he sets his sights on the most impressive steamer boat ever built. You see how we can get there in just like a few sentences if we kind of condense, and then you can spend your time on the most fun part, which is we're doing a movie where like a heist on a ship in a hurricane. That's so cool. I want to know more about that, and I think you need to get us there sooner. And then when you're like, and then they arrive in the boat and he realizes, holy crap, the captain is his ex-lover that he betrayed. You can just kind of tell us that, and we wouldn't have then needed to go through the whole journey of like learning about the betrayal and stuff like that. All we need for the purposes of a pitch is that, like, that is an interesting detail. He gets on board the ship. We learn that there's going to be an antagonist that has some personal connection to the hero and stuff like that. That is good to know, but it doesn't take more than a couple words to explain it. Did you get through as much as you'd wanted to in this one, or were you aiming for just like, maybe just tell us what the midpoint is that you were building up to?
Well, I mean, the midpoint of the story is the eye of the storm, so we weren't that close.
Oh, we weren't. I thought you were sort of saying the midpoint was the storm starts.
No, that's the storm starting is like the end of Act 1.
Really? Okay. But it gets worse over the course of the movie, you're saying?
Yeah, it gets worse, and they basically it gets so bad, that the ship they're fighting to survive. The eye of the storm comes, and everyone thinks they're saved, but the captain knows that the ship is lost, and that the moment that the storm begins again, they'll be lost. And then the second half of the story is them escaping the ship.
I see. But the storm's still going on, so they pass through the eye, now they're on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. So then literally it's the second half of the storm is the second half of the story.
I see. I do like that, but yeah, I didn't feel like we were that close to getting there, just in terms of the presentation. So I think we would have needed to introduce less characters. First of all, you gave us more characters than we can really keep track of. Including like 3 or 4 different names, where we're only really going to remember like one name, or perhaps 2. So like in terms of the central partnership, you have the captain and you have Eli. That's like your main duo, right? The core of the team. Yeah. So they're probably the only ones we really need to mention. And then the third character you'd mentioned would be that central relationship, who's also I'm sorry, was the central relationship, now is the villain. So that's still only really 3 named characters that we need to fully be concerned with. And then you're going to want to, when you get to that around the midpoint, then you sort of suggest, like you sort of just did now, what the latter half of the movie is going to be. So now you at the end of it, you would say something like, now that once they pass through the eye, the storm becomes, it gets to its absolute worst point, and now they have to get the gold out in the middle of, and complete the heist in the middle of this massive hurricane. Something like that. Just suggest the remainder of it. So yeah, in terms of story issues, there aren't. I didn't detect any major story issues because it sounds like everything's working pretty well, and everything's pretty much clicking in terms of just like what's going on. It's just the presentation needs to cut away the superfluous stuff that's not assisting us for the pitch. If you're going to do a long pitch, then you would probably start like the way you did, a long pitch being like, take us through the entire thing. And that is a valuable sort of skill as well, to be able to do the whole thing in maybe, like 5 to 10 minutes, or like around that amount of time. 10 minutes being like kind of pushing it. For after about 10, you're going to want to have written documents of some kind. But for just the 3 to 4 minute version, once upon a time there was this dude, and every day he was doing stuff like this until one day he lost everything. Then he set his sights on this, and he needed to assemble this team to do it. So they move out and they decide to do X. Now we're in the second act. It should kind of be that fast.
Okay, great.
Any questions on this?
No, I think that's really helpful. Yeah, I mean, we're still figuring out some of the heist elements themselves, so maybe that will help me tighten things up a lot. But thank you.
Sure. Thanks so much, Jason. Okay, looks like we have Too Lazy ready for a pitch, and we have Dan. So we have 2 more. We're going to try to stick to 10 minutes each total time on these. So let's go to Lazy. Are you ready to take us through honeypots?
Yes. First off, I listened to your advice. I tightened up the log line. I agree it was too long. And yeah, I wrote the pitch. First time saying it out loud, so
that's okay.
Wish me luck here.
Yeah, just do your best whenever you're ready.
Yes, an extremely intelligent but depressed and lonely cybersecurity agent assists the FBI in tracking down websites on the dark web that host illegal marketplaces. They take control of one of the websites and keep it up to try and get sellers and buyers on the site locked up. One of the people busted in the investigation that the agent assisted in is a middle-aged dad who tried hiring a hitman on the website in order to kill the person that molested his young daughter, which unfortunately caused her to take her own life. The cybersecurity agent finds out what happened, feels extremely guilty about this, and he uses his skills with technology to track the child molester down, get access to firearms, and comes up with a complicated plan to get away with the murder. Before he ends up going through, he visits the father in prison, and after the father gets their blessing, he goes to the house. He successfully kills the child molester, but as he's trying to dispose of the body, the wife of the molester comes home, sees what happened. After the two struggle, after she tries to go to call the phone, she ends up getting killed, leaving him with 2 dead bodies to dispose of. He's able to get rid of the corpses, but he doesn't cover his tracks properly, and he ends up becoming a prime suspect, and he ends up confessing to the murders. And the last scene is him in prison, being interviewed by a reporter. The reporter asks if doing this made him feel fulfilled in his life, and yeah, he just responds with a simple yes, and the movie ends there. That was good.
Nice. Yeah, that came in under 2 minutes. That was really efficient. Good work with the timing.
Oh, thank you.
So I think this was pretty good. Let me ask just a couple clarifying questions, maybe. So what would you say the majority of the movie is following your character doing? Is it mostly, so like once we break into Act 2, is this mostly him at the guy's house trying to kill him, and then he ends up having to kill the wife as well, and then like I'm just wondering what's getting in the way at that point. Is it like him sort of narrowly narrowly avoiding getting caught, like avoiding close calls with like a cop or like with a neighbor, things like that, as he tries to, is most of the movie him trying to cover up or to dispose of these corpses?
I'd say more of it is him trying to set up the murder, trying to get everything possible, and kind of the difficulties of that. And yeah, I'd say the finale is at the house.
The finale's at the house.
That was the way I sort of envisioned it, yes.
So the murder happens towards the end?
It kind of happens towards the end.
It does. Oh, I'm confused then. So it sounded to me like you were saying the murders were more like the midpoint, and then the latter half of the movie is him trying to get away with it, and I could totally see and picture that. But if you're saying the murders don't happen until towards the end of the movie, I'm struggling to see what the main character is doing for most of the time. I mean, watching somebody prepare to carry out a murder, that's like a sequence or two sequences at the most. It's not like an hour and 20 minutes of movie, right? Because then we might ask, what are we watching? Like, what is he actually up to? Can you, maybe it's okay if you don't have an answer if you haven't written this yet or something like that. But any thoughts on that?
I was thinking a lot of the focus would actually be on him setting up, doing all the stuff that movies usually don't show.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the difficulties, a lot of the struggles he has are him trying to do that.
Right.
But I understand your criticism.
Have you written this already, or is this something you're just planning to write?
This is something that I'm in the early stages of planning.
Early stages of planning. Okay. So my recommendation for you is, if this is the hook of the movie, it's this guy trying to... I mean, I like that you're saying you're going to put more effort and thought into the preparation for this murder than movies usually go into. That's great, but that doesn't feel like it's a whole movie. That doesn't feel like it's going to be the majority of the story, because then it's like your main character isn't even interacting with the villain until the end. And so what is his obstacles are? What he needs to buy duct tape at Home Depot, like he needs to plan out his route and his maps and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff is good to touch upon, but it's not going to carry a feature narrative. So I think you probably want the murders to be like the midpoint at least, or like even fun and games, even a little before. And then him trying to get away with it, I can totally see that stuff. And then you can maybe even tell us what some of those obstacles might be. You know, he's trying to get rid of the corpses. It turns out the neighbor's a cop. The neighbor's like getting closer and closer. Or like your main character, he gets rid of the corpses, and now they're the investigation is bringing them closer to him. We sort of do like a Fargo season 1 kind of storyline, something like that. I can totally see that stuff. But if you suggest to us that the whole movie is him preparing to do the exciting stuff that you talked about in the logline, then we'll be a little lost as to what we're going to have trouble seeing the first 75% of that story.
All right, I understand your criticism, and you're correct. Yeah, like the way I was thinking is that it would kind of trick the audience into maybe thinking that he got away with it, but then you kind of realize, yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, that actually does make it more interesting.
Yeah, especially if you make it seem like he gets away with it, then we're gonna be sort of like, what's gonna happen? How's he gonna stay free? You know, how's he gonna stay out of trouble?
Yeah, you're filling me with a lot of ideas here. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah. Hope that's helpful.
On that. It was very helpful. So yeah, I like the idea of maybe one of the neighbors noticing something's up.
Sure. Yeah. Then we're doing kind of like the comedy of, it's not comedy, but like the comedy of errors of, you know, like then the neighbor starts getting a little too close. Now he's got to make up a lie to keep the neighbor at bay, and then like he takes the cart, drives them to the quarry to drop them in the quarry, and the car breaks down, and like we sort of just would understand that those sort of set pieces are going to be central in the movie, and that's going to be kind of like a lot of the fun that people came to the movie for.
Okay. So yeah, like a lot of the movie in my mind was him contemplating what was going to happen. Him thinking about, should I really do this?
But contemplating is like, even, I mentioned at the beginning, the word discussing is like a red flag for not very dramatic. Contemplating is even a step back from that. Contemplating is not even, it's like a guy sitting there just thinking, right? Or I know that you can portray that in other ways, and we're going to see like he has to fully understand the cost of what he's going to do, and he has to, you know, prepare for it. Maybe there's somebody in his life that doesn't want him to do it, but like it's just not as interesting as the thing that you told us the movie was about. And and the logline is the thing that tells us what the movie is about, and that's sort of telling us what the movie is. The movie's the second act, and at the second act is a guy planning out an extensive murder and trying to decide whether or not he should do it. That doesn't sound as cinematic, and that doesn't quite sound like the story the logline said it was. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand those criticisms, so that's what you think it should focus on more.
For sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
And
I understand those criticisms.
Great. And some good comps for you. Maybe like Mr. Robot meets I Saw the Devil or something like that would be good comps, just off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, I do think Mr. Robot was an inspiration for sure, and the idea for this.
Great. Any questions on this one?
I think I understand a lot of your criticisms quite a bit. You know, a lot of them are pretty valid in my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah, this was kind of something in the early stages, and I needed to flesh it out more, so that's why I brought it up here.
That's okay. I'm impressed by your presentation of it, especially the fact that you got all the way through to the end and really clarified the character journey. So nice work with the pitch.
Yeah, like I got all these ideas, and I know what I want to do. It's just about how you get from that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
and
what
I communicate better.
The more you practice and the more that you do this, the better you will get at it for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback. It's been very helpful for me.
Sure. Thanks so much for pitching. We have a
No
question
problem.
from Taylor. Regarding comps, how obscure can comps be during a pitch? Well, the goal is for the listener to know what you're talking about, and you don't earn points if they don't know it. Does that make sense? So, like, if you're pitching to, like, if we imagine it should be something that anyone could get. Imagine, a 19-year-old intern, I always say, is the one who's evaluating you. You have to kind of just imagine it's that. So I would pick something that a 19-year-old intern would know for the most part. That's not always going to be in every. If there's some comp that you have to pick that you're like, there's no way someone would know this. Chances are you should pick a different comp. It's not really a great place to show off. It's a place to get someone excited about the pitch before they hear it. So, not too obscure is the answer. Okay, do we have one more from Dan?
You talking to me? I'm sorry, I wasn't sure.
You're good. Hi, Dan. You want to read out your logline for us?
Sure. Let me scroll back up to it. The Last Horseman. Comedy, religion, possibly a little bit of supernatural type stuff. Banished to Earth after ruining Armageddon yet again, a nervous horseman of the apocalypse forms a team with the embodiment of vanity and a pious archangel to help him protect Earth from God's wrath after falling in love with it.
All right. Nice with this. We've been working on this one for a little while. I remember this from the
Yes.
feature class. Banished to Earth after ruining Armageddon, a nervous horseman of the apocalypse forms a team with the embodiment of vanity and a pious archangel to help him protect Earth from God's wrath. Wait, is God the one threatening Earth?
He does more than that. He actually decides he's going to reset. He does another great reset.
But is the threat God or is it the other horsemen?
It's the other horsemen teaming up with God.
Right, but
Perhaps I should reword it then.
Yeah, exactly. Is God the
Well,
main
the wrath
antagonist of the movie, or are the other horsemen the main antagonist?
The other horseman is the main antagonist.
Okay.
God is kind of like being played like a pawn.
Okay, I would definitely mention that then. So, God.
But it's God's powers being used.
I understand, but it's the other horsemen are really the active antagonist that he's facing against. I think so. I'd frame it in terms of that instead. Besides that, the only thing is typically you don't want to leave something like after falling in love with it for the end. We'd probably want to move that up just a little bit earlier in the logline. But besides that, this is working pretty well. I can tell you've worked on this one for a while. Do you want to go right into the pitch?
Sure. Let's get into the pitch then. Sorry if I'm going to be a little nervous with this whole thing.
No, you're totally
my
fine.
first time doing a pitch.
It's not easy, but just do your best. Take your time. I'll give you an indication, but I won't rush you or anything. We'll cut it off at 4 minutes. Just do your best.
All right, so picture this. We start off at the situation with the center of the battle of heaven and hell. We're at the precipice of the gates of hell, at the pearly gates, and the forces of heaven and hell, angels and devils, demons of all kinds, and everyone is ready, and everyone is taunting each other, ready to go to battle. And yet one of these at the front, the horsemen of the apocalypse, the 4 that you know, and one more who's actually kind of a joke. He's wearing a safety helmet. He's wearing elbow pads. He has training wheels on his chariot. And he's such a jittery, nervous mess that when the Archangel Gabriel, who's a pompous, pious jerk that even the other angels can't despise him, brings him to the brink, his power of fear, which is his namesake, overflows, and he causes all of the demons to run away back through the gates, causing defeat. And now Satan, Big Daddy Satan, is not too happy about all this. No. So at a meeting later, when he's chiding his generals, his horsemen, he's looking at the fearful horsemen, and he's going, "Yeah, we're going to take you. I'm going to banish you to purgatory while I decide how to handle this." So he banishes them to purgatory, and there he meets the embodiment of the 8th sin, the banished sin, taken out of the lexicon, and she deserves it because she is vainglory, and she is so self-centered. There, Satan decided to set their fate with a kangaroo court, a literal kangaroo court. There are kangaroos, and because he was on a budget, he had one wombat. So in his fury, he decrees that they will be banished to Earth, and so they can learn to control their powers and make themselves more useful. Maybe build some confidence, learn some humility. And so they are sent to Earth, where they are sent to find out that they are under the watchful guise, living in what is Earth's hell, New Jersey, under the Jersey Devil. And it turns out, hey, look, that Archangel, that Gabriel, the Archangel is there too. And oh boy, now that I'm here on Earth, instead of being bullied by the other horsemen, I'm going to be bullied by this guy. Great. And the Jersey Devil is a very New Jersey person, says he doesn't give a fuck, he's just doing the job. And so he says, get out, get a job, whatever. So our hero, for fear, gets the job. He goes through a montage, being abused, he can't even get a fast food job, although he's getting picked on every step of the way by Gabriel, until he finally just decides, I'm going to man up. I'm not going to let these people bully me around. I've tried everything. I've even tried killing myself, but no, that easy escape won't work. So he does the thing that every evil person does. He becomes a lawyer. He falls in love with another lawyer. So things are going up. His confidence is increasing. He's no longer this jittery, nervous mess. But Gabriel is his earthly rival, is going through a weird situation. He's happy. He's working with the church. He's in confessional constantly because he's an angel, and this is out of his element, which is the sky, and he's got no idea what he's doing. He's talking about these people and how he's just coming to find himself in love with them. Dare he say that? Or Gabriel is a very much a Boy Scout type of milady type of guy, but he's actually a genuine nice person. Well, sort of. It's complicated, but he puts God first. So when he tells them about this, the church is like, there are demons among us. We must hunt them and we must track them down. For our brother here of faith, our brother of Christ, or whatever faith we are, doesn't matter. So they are like, okay. So it turns out those two do start dating. And they do invite Fear and his new fiance to a date. And his new, well, not yet fiance, girlfriend. And while this is all going on, hell and heaven are watching them through what is called the blood streaming service. And so war is always in power, especially in these day and age, is jealous of how popular that Fear is becoming. Fear is supposed to be the loser of all the horsemen. So he's like, okay, I've got an idea. He makes call upstairs, and every call he calls upstairs. The call upstairs, a light and heavenly burst through the phone as he talks to well, it's obviously God, but we don't know it yet, saying, let's make a deal. How would you like to have another reset? How would you like to just reset, except this time with fire instead of water? And so that's what, and so that is catalyzed by, oh, I'm not gonna say. This is all catalyzed by his by Fear's new popularity, and Fear, has to find. It turns out that stupid Vainglory got herself captured by this church, so Fear has to go and save her. And now he's gaining his powers back. He's becoming stronger. He's even telling his girlfriend that I can't be with you. I'm sorry. And so he just kicks some churchly ass. But Gabriel was there, and he's. I'm screwing up.
That's okay.
I'm trying to go too quickly here.
Yeah, that's okay. So, maybe if you find yourself like running out of time, you want to just suggest what is going to be the conflict for the rest of it. So you say like his girlfriend is kidnapped, and now he needs to go and save her from who saved her?
Vainglory is kidnapped, and he needs to rescue her. He despises her, and now she's pissed because Gabriel is siding with the church over her, and when he had been, so now she's absolutely devastated because nobody cares about her.
Okay.
As she hides behind this self-absorbed shield.
Okay, so but just what I mean is that when you
apart at this all is lost.
Go ahead.
Everyone's falling apart at this all is lost moment because everybody is questioning their realities. Fear's like, I don't want to go back to the hell. I like it down here.
Okay.
He's
so
committing a sacrilege.
Gotcha. So this is super creative and super funny. I mean, the very Terry Pratchett kind of tone to this. I think that the world of it is great and the premise is super great. In terms of the presentation of it, we spent again like a whole minute on just the opening scene, and it was really difficult to tell what was important in the story. When you try to include everything, it stops being clear what is as important. So that's why so much of pitching is like excising the things that don't matter as much. And we really want to get kind of going in the second act by the fourth or fifth sentence, as I mentioned a couple times in the in this class. So if all we need to know for the story is there's a horseman of the apocalypse, but he's not like the others. He's kind of nerdy and wimpy and afraid of everyone, and he messes up Armageddon so that the world isn't going to end. As punishment, he gets banished to Earth, and he ends up in New Jersey. Is that an accurate summation of that first kind of act?
Yes.
Okay.
So he ends up on Earth, and it turns out he's actually starting to like it down there because nobody knows who he is, and he can carve a brand new, clean slate.
That's great. That would be really great after he gets... So, like, that would be, like, your sixth sentence or so, and that would be before, like, the 1 minute mark. We should pretty much get through the whole first act. So yeah, there's really nice enthusiasm, and I'm glad you're excited about it. But as we had a comment in the chat just now from Taylor that says the personality in the pitch made it difficult to focus. Maybe just like if everything is like at 10 out of 10 like level of bombastic, it becomes a little bit difficult to tell what is this. But it's great to have like personality and a voice.
To go quickly because you said I only have 4 minutes to get everything out there.
Well, not everything. The goal is to go around to the midpoint and then to sort of suggest the rest of the movie, to like take us to around the midpoint and then say, and then he has to work with blank to accomplish blank, and that's gonna like sort of mentally fill in the second half of the.
But you said to avoid saying and then.
Avoid saying and then. You can say and then. Did I say don't say and then?
All right. I was trying to avoid saying and then because that implies the and then and then this happens instead of this causes this to happen.
Okay, I think I see what you're referring to now. You're referring to my normal sort of writing idea that your events should be connected in your story, meaning one thing leads to the next thing. I think when you're verbally pitching, that isn't as much of a problem because just saying and when you're explaining a story doesn't always mean it's unconnected from something else. That's just a principle that is to like something to use to look at and diagnose your outlines and make sure one event is leading to the next thing. It's okay if you say the words and then in a verbal pitch. Yeah, so good stuff happening. Just keep it concise, keep it kind of brief and to the point, get us into the world and into the second act a little bit quicker. And then when important things happen, you can really emphasize those and that make it really feel more important when those vital things happen, I guess. So I think that I got kind of lost in the structure. I was like, how far in this are we? Are we past the midpoint? Is this towards the end? I'm not quite sure. So maybe after he goes to Earth, then you're going to want to introduce that new sort of tangible goalpost as soon as you can. So it's like he goes to Earth, he actually starts to really like it, he gets a job, and then what is his, if we could just sum up his sort of primary objective at that point for the rest of the story, how would you summarize what his goalpost is? Once he gets the job.
To live out the rest of his days on Earth and enjoy it while he can before he probably human dies and has to go back to hell anyway.
Okay, so he just wants
Hopefully
to live a normal...
avoiding the other two banishes in the process.
So if he's just living a normal human life, I'm not sure what the obstacle is. So what's standing in the way?
The obstacle is that because of all of his, because the other demons and all the hell citizens are watching this through their, as I called it, the blood streaming services.
Uh-huh.
And now Ward, the other horseman who's always picked on him and is usually above him and more popular than him, is getting really jealous and really envious, and it's like, I need to win everybody back, and if I can't win them back, I'll win them back the best way I know how, by force.
Okay, so
he says, so he goes, you know what? I'm obsessed with war. Humans seem to be really obsessed with war. Thank God, I've got an idea. And all it requires is all the nuclear warheads.
Whoa. Okay, so there's...
Yeah, it goes off the rails.
Yeah, that is important to know. And I think that...
But that's like at the end of the second act. That's the villain's win moment.
Oh, but that's what your main character ultimately needs to stop from happening?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, this is like, I just decided I want to live here forever, and now forever is about to stop.
Okay, so when you're pitching the story, it should kind of come out a little bit like that, right? So he gets a job on Earth, he's loving it here, but then he finds out his rival horseman, War, is threatening to blow up the entire world. So now our main character needs to team up with blank and blank, and they need to go and stop him. So see how you can kind of like suggest the rest of the movie like that?
Yeah, I can see.
But you got to put the really clear goalpost in place first, which is like, this bad guy is going to do this specific bad thing, and now our main character needs to use this tactic to try to stop them. And you can use that once we get to the midpoint, just say, and then he needs to blank and blank to accomplish his goal. And we're going to like imagine, we're going to do the work of imagining the rest. Unless you're so concise with it that you can take us through the whole story like we had a couple examples of today. Does that make sense, though, and just like how you want to condense this?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to be short-worded because there's a lot written. The story has a lot written, and trying to figure out what's the most important thing to say.
Yeah,
I've got horse racing right now.
It's tricky. It's not easy. You might have to do it a couple times. Just the timer, it feels like it adds a little pressure, but if you do it on your own, then maybe you can find just like if you can just add that arbitrary cutoff, it just sort of forces you to express everything to get to the end before that timer is up. So it can be useful to try timing yourself and just like practicing maybe with another person once or twice before you try to do the full pitch for it. But I hope that helps, and I hope that's clear. And the story itself sounds really creative, and I would love to see a movie like this. So I didn't detect any major story issues. I think the presentation of this just needs to get us into the world, take us to the second act, tell us what the obstacle is, what's standing in the way, and this is how your main character is going to try to overcome it, rather than trying to list everything that happens in every single relationship and every single event.
All right. I'm trying it because every relationship is kind of interconnected, and so it's hard to just leave a character out.
Right, I understand. It's not the easiest thing, but we could still pretty much say, this is the story of a hobbit who needs to go to the other side of the world and throw a ring into a volcano. And it's like, do we need to mention Merry and Pippin for that story to make sense? Not really, even though they are important and they do matter in the larger text of the story. For the purposes of a pitch, we just need to understand the main through line.
Oh. All right.
Awesome. So thank you so much for this. Nice work with this pitch. I think that's our last one for today. So we might as well are we going to do prizes right now, or were we planning to do prizes tomorrow or something, Nacho? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going to do an announcement tomorrow.
Okay, we'll do tomorrow. So I won't be judging right now. Yeah, I might need a little time to think about it and to watch the video back. And if you want to watch your own video back, check on YouTube, because this should be up right away in 2 parts, unfortunately, because of the streaming thing. Let's wrap up. So thank you so much. I hope this was fun for you guys and educational. I know it's tough. It's tough, isn't it? It's like nerve-wracking. There's no stakes to this. I'm not like you're not trying to sell the movie. And it's only a small audience watching it, but it adds a little bit of difficulty to just have someone else, be listening to a pitch. And I want to just, round of applause, silent clapping on mic applause to everybody who came up and gave it a shot, maybe even for the first time. It's not easy, but this is one of those main skills that we use in Hollywood. Concisely summarizing information and presenting stories, following one character's journey is one of the most vital things that you can practice if you want to work in this industry as a feature writer or a TV writer. We don't have a list, we don't have a slide for the upcoming stuff at the moment, do we? So, any upcoming events this week that we need to plug, Nacha? Or is everything after the holiday?
There's a slide about just some coming free classes.
There is. Oh, yeah, I got this one.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that. All right, so how to sell your movie idea. It's going to be more sort of stuff like this. That's going to be on Wednesday, the 28th. That's 1 week from today. So I guess the rest of them are after Christmas. Do we not have any other classes till after the holiday?
Horror workshop on the 27th. Monica mentioned that is going to be happening on the 7th.
Oh, okay, but that's after Christmas though. So yeah, okay. So we'll still have club meetings going on, I think, around the holidays. You might just have to check with your club group leader to be sure. But this is what we got coming up. So after Christmas, we have how to sell the movie idea. That's going to be, again, communicating story ideas should really be the focus there. And we'll have that TV writing class on the 30th. Everything else starts first week of January. January 6th, we'll have TV pilot boot camp resume. Write a whole TV pilot in 6 weeks. And we'll have feature boot camp get started January 8th, 11 to 1 on Sundays into February. And that runs for 8 weeks. Any questions from anyone today, or any comments, questions based on anything we've talked about before we go?
Thank you for having this. This is a lot to think about.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
I'll be more careful next time.
You guys did great. We're glad to have you. We're going to call it for today. We have some links in the chat. If you guys want to click the interested button next to these new events coming up, then you'll be notified before they get started. And these are the free public classes coming up. So I would, refer your friends if you have more people in your life that you think are interested in screenwriting stuff. These are fun to just come by and participate in and just try it out. So we'll be glad to see you soon at your next ScriptCamp workshop or event. Thank you so much for coming by, and hope you all have a great rest of your night.